Hello everybody, welcome back to the Air Gun Stock channel. So we're on the final stages of this HW30 project. After that last sanding, we did remove the last of the grain pocket craters, I was calling them, and got a level surface with no holes at all. It's an absolutely flawless, perfect surface. And so then another maybe dozen wipings of oil, which you saw me do. It takes a fair amount of rubbing. It deposits extremely tiny and an extremely tiny amount of oil on top. You've got to really rub it to get it to take it all. So about a dozen applications of that to bring the sheen of the finish back. But after that process, there's always little micro bits of embedded dust, which I'd have to really look for. Frankly, it's probably good enough the way it is. It looks pretty clean, but nonetheless, there may also be some slight uneven aspects to some of the wipings that occurred. Nothing so far as a run. We're not talking like that thick at all, but you know, if you look at it obliquely in the light, maybe you'd find little tiny microscopic imperfections in the surface. So the next step is rubbing compound. This is like liquid sandpaper, and the idea is just a final, very smoothing out, is that a word, of the surface, and that'll be followed up with wax. And the material I'm using here, I can't see in the sunlight. If you're seeing this, it's a 3M Super Duty rubbing compound. This is a heavy cut compound, it says, and that is what we want. There's a lot of rubbing compounds out there for car finishes that are really more properly polishing compounds because they're so fine. We want something that's actually, you know, finer than the 500 grit wet dry, but something that's got a little bit of grittiness to it to give a nice smoothing. So we're gonna soak the stock in water. I'm gonna soak a folded Scott Blue shop towel in water. I'm going to apply some of the rubbing compound, and I'm just going to very smoothly and somewhat lightly rub it all over the entire surface, and I'm going to try to do it evenly so that the resulting sort of dulling down in the finish that occurs is fairly even all over the surface of the stock. So I'm going to be quiet, and hopefully I don't get in the way of the camera, and I'm just going to do it. It'll only take a few minutes. Oh, and while I'm at it, I'm going to use a nylon brush. Am I in the camera? Nylon brush on the bottom of the recoil pad. There's always some walnut dust and, you know, just some dirt. I notice there's some little white stuff. I don't know what that is, some lint or something in there. So while it's wet, I'm going to scrub the back of the recoil pad and get that nice and clean. Hopefully I don't knock you around with the hose. Alright, so got a good dollop on there. I'm using very light pressure. Pick some of that grit up, move it over here. So that's why the towel's there. Slip and slide. And did we get the grip cap? Alright, feel good about that. Alright. Okay, back into the shop. Blue shop paper towel dry, and then we'll apply wax, and I'll check back in with you when I'm over there. Okay, so now we're back in the shop. I dried the stock with blue shop paper towels, and then I put it in the sun to warm the wood a little bit. It's not really all that warm. I didn't want to take time. Would have been fine to let it get warm for this step, but I just put it in the sun a little bit to warm up and make sure that all the little crevices were dry and there wasn't any water that was going to drip on me or on the finish while I'm working on it. I also took a few minutes to inspect the surface, and basically there's no grain pockets. There are a dozen or so teeny tiny pinpricks of holes in this one little section right here. They're completely invisible unless you get the angle of the right light just right, and I wouldn't call them grain pockets, and they just didn't want to fill with oil. In the ensuing years, as the stock gets sanded and oiled, maybe they will, but they're basically invisible. And I see 3 teeny tiny pinpricks there, but for the most part, there are no grain pockets. The surface of the wood is perfectly smooth and completely filled with oil. It's like a mirror, you know. It's a perfect plastic-like surface. In terms of, I say perfect, but you know, okay, a couple dozen little tiny pinpricks. Does that mean it's not perfect and it should still be worked on until even those are gone? Yeah, I don't think so. It is wood. It's a natural material. We accomplished the goal. I think this is the level of what I consider perfection. Of course, everybody reaches your own point of good enough, but this is far and away, this is good enough. So, you know, I looked over the surface and it looks good. And nothing that I feel like I want to go back and work on, which would really suck. I'd put it back another couple weeks. So, but luckily, looks fine. Okay, so now I cut up a Scott blue paper towel into fourths, as we've been doing, but I'm not going to worry about the lint now. I'm just going to fold it up. And I'm going to use Carnauba Wax. This is Meguiar's. I have used this particular product in this material for a very long time, so I have confidence in its performance. I'm sure there are plenty similar products out there that can work. But I'll tell you my own experience with it. Now, I just looked it up so that I had fresh information in my head. Carnauba comes from the leaves of a palm tree, the Carnauba palm that grows in Brazil. And apparently it was early on used as the finish on racing boat holes to make them slippery in the water. It said, some of the articles I was reading say it can be used in the composites industry as a mold release, and I'm thinking, you know, I've always said that car waxes that have silicates that cause liquid to bead is not what we want for mold making, or for like when we glass bed. We use Particle number 2 wax. I'm guessing that must also be a Carnauba wax, but maybe without the silicates, because water sheets on top of that surface. So this isn't just, apparently the Carnauba that comes out of the palm comes off as dried, hard flakes, and it's not really workable. So then companies like Meguiar's mix that with beeswax or all kind of other proprietary things to make it liquidy and give it other properties. Now, one thing I read is that Carnauba wax in of itself does not provide any UV protection, and in fact on this Meguiar's bottle, I read it and it nowhere claims to provide UV protection. However, my first hobby business for a very long time, and I still practice it. Actually, I'm planning on going flying this afternoon. I'm going to fly this new dam I found. It's going to be a north wind, so I'm super stoked about that. But anyway, I made these high-speed radio control model sailplanes. They're slope gliders. We fly them out at the coast and off of hills and mountains, and well, today I'm going to try flying this dam. And I did a product line that was, they were fiberglass wings and tails that were colored with pigment rather than paint. And those wings, if left in the sun, if you took them out without waxing them 1 or 2 times, the finish would turn dark brown. The colors would look horrible, and that was just the end of it. You may as well just paint it at that point. But if I put a couple of coats of Meguiar's Carnauba Wax on the fiberglass surfaces, the colors would stay pristine for years, decades, long time. You know, maybe yearly cleaning and washing the dirt off from the previous season and putting a new coat of wax on would probably helped, you know. But nonetheless, I do believe from my own experience that the material provides some pretty significant amount of UV protection. So that's what I use. I like it. I'm going to use it. I think you could use any kind of wax you want on the gun stock. It's not going to see a lot of time in the sun, but maybe it will. I go on in with my guns. They end up laying there in the baking sun, maybe for hours while I'm sitting there hoping something comes by. That would be turkey in my case for the most part. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to apply this all over. This is the rub it in, rub it off routine, but basically what we want to do is put it on. Well, it's going to need a lot more than that. And let it kind of glaze over. And then we go over it with what's called a process called breaking the glaze. And that will assist it in drying further. This bottle's getting pretty old and feels poorly mixed. I did shake it. Let me just shake it some more. Alright, let's give this a try. Yeah, I'm going to have to get some more of this. Well, that looks a little better. And I'm just going to pick up this extra looseness. And watch your fingernails. Watch your ring. And I think it's okay to rub it in a little bit. It's almost like a last little bit of polishing action that might be imparted to it. By the way, that coarse grit rubbing compound really works great. It knocks the finish back just that microscopic amount to smooth it out. Any little, you know, there makes like not even ridges. It's like hints of streaks. They're not even streaks, but you know, if you get the light just right from the applications, those last dozen coats of oil, it's just a little bit imperfect, and the rubbing compound just knocks it back to a nice, smooth, even surface. Make sure you get the top of the forearm too. Alright, there goes. I'm going to let it dry for a few minutes, then I'm going to lightly buff it off, but not really trying to polish it, just hitting it kind of light, and then let it finish drying, and then buff it off vigorously with the paper towel. And the end user should plan on waxing it, you know, maybe once a year, once every couple of years. Put another couple coats on when you get it just to admire it, but I think the one coat I put on here is going to be just fine. Make the water bead off of it if you take it in the rain. Give it some UV protection, and really make the wood glow. Yep. Oh, not the recoil pad's dry. Still a couple white fluffy things in there to get in there with the brush and clean that off. Oh, brush is wet. Well, so now that it's wet, I can't tell if I did it or not, but we'll check it when it dries. Actually, I probably did just get that pretty good. Just want that to be nice and rich black looking. I don't think I ever mentioned it, but I made sure on the last coats of oil to also very neatly get the edge of the rubber on the recoil pad, so it's got a nice rich black glow to it and doesn't look cloudy from having been sanded on. Yep. Okay, so next I got to work on the action just a little bit more. I got to grind the sight grooves off of the end of the barrel in order to put a muzzle brake on it. And I figure since it's going to be in the vise, grinding the grooves off, I may as well do the guy a favor and cut a target crown on the end of the barrel. These factory crowns are never really intersect the rifling very perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. That'll just be a little bonus, I guess. He didn't ask me for it. Hopefully he doesn't mind. I kind of doubt it. And, yep. That's going to be about it. I might film boxing it. I've been wanting to do that for a long time. Filling out of ship guns. I have to fix a lot of guns I get from people because they ship them, you know, put together, thrown in a cardboard box, assembled, and then, you know, I think what happens is it comes off of the conveyor belt and stands up on its end, and the next box coming off of the conveyor belt T-bones the gun, standing up there vertical, and just cracks it right in half. Okay, I'll check back in with you when probably when I'm working on the end of the barrel, and then hopefully when I box it up, and then this project will be done. I promise you I won't take you to the UPS store with me. Okay, bye. Okay, so now I'm going to use the Manson Reamer Kit to get this in the, to cut a crown. So this is an 11-degree angle. Let me see if I can get this position to show you the angle of the cutters there. And then it's got a 177 rod inserted through there. You've probably seen me do this before with a brush that goes down inside the bore. For 177, it's just a rod because it's too small to be able to pull off with the brush routine. So this just goes down in there, and you apply downward pressure. Let me zoom back out again. Whoops, wrong way. There you, yeah, like this, and turn the crank. And every little bit, pull it off and clean up the chips. Oh yeah, it's looking really nice. Oh, and you probably can't see from your angle, but I can see how imperfect it had been from the factory. It's making like an oval. Well, I got a comment yesterday from a fellow, and thank you very much for all of your comments, those that choose to comment. No comment is a bad comment. Oh, except the spam. Commenting that on the HW30 that you know, having glass bedded it, and it's a $650 gun, and I think if I interpret the fellow's short statement by what he meant is $650 is an awful lot of money to spend for a gun that you still got to do work to, and I kind of think that's de rigueur. It's just how it is. Is that true for today, or has it always been an all time that you got to meet a price point. And certainly all these airgun factory barrels, and it probably holds true for most firearms too, that are, anything that's mass produced is it's not going to be as good as this attention to detail can do for it. Oh yeah, that's looking really nice. Gorgeous. This metal's cutting really nicely too. Since I'm talking about the HW90, the cutter, I'm not sure chatter is the right word, but I guess it looked like chatter. It wasn't. This is cutting really smooth. Gee, it's gorgeous. I still have that HW90, despite the video where I showed its improved performance. I don't know, I felt like its performance was variable. I don't know if it's me just having a hard time shooting such a heavy recoiling gun, or what I had noticed, and well, you're going to see me work on that here in a little bit. As soon as I get this out in the mail, I'm going to put that HW90 back on the bench. But when I pushed a pellet through to judge where to cut that choke off, I noticed as the pellet went down the bore that the bore's inside diameter is variable. You got tight, loose, tight, loose, tight, loose. And I'm wondering if where I cut it, yeah, I cut it just before the fakey choke, which is what we wanted. But I wonder if that might have also been in an area where the barrel was looser. So I want to push a pellet through and see, where's the last snug spot. If it's within an inch or so of its current cut length, it might be worth to cut it back to that and see if it tightens it up. Okay, so now, see, I don't really have to do this. Nobody's ever going to see it, but it would be nice to make it uniform. See, this goes in there, and that's going to go in there. Oops, other way around. Hold on, I'm messing with this little piece here. I'm trying to get the guide pin in there. Oh, there. Let's see, does it contact? It does. Let me just knock that back a little bit. But actually, that's not going to match the original. I think I just want to leave it like that. Actually, nobody's ever going to see it. It's got a really nice target crown. The fact that the rest is the factory blue and this is silvery, I'm going to blue that, but it won't match. But I was thinking about recutting the entire thing, but now that I see what's going on, I would have to flatten it, recut the crown, break the edge, and I think this just looks so beautiful. I don't want to mess with it. Let me look at it with a loop. Oh yeah. Well, hold on a minute, guys. Looks can be deceiving, huh? Let's see here. It's a 22. Hold on, I'll be back in a minute. I gotta find a brush. So, okay, now I got the loop on there. I got it cleaned up, put the loop on it with a flashlight, and I haven't intersected the rifling yet. This factory crown is so poor that the rifling ends down inside there a little ways. I'd have to characterize it as maybe 20 thou or so. And so now I got to decide if I'm just going to cut it with the reamer down that far, or and nip it off with the metal cutting bandsaw. And I think I'm going to just grind on it some more and see how that goes. And I want to stuff a little piece of wad material down the bore, because this is going to take more than a little bit of grinding. I don't want anything drip down all the way down to the compression tube. This is a piece of street sweeper brush. When I'm out on my run and I find these, I like to pick them up. So I got a little collection of them, and it's it's good material that comes in handy for a variety of different kinds of things. Okay, so we got a little paper towel wad down in there, and now I'm just going to do cut for a while and try to get down there to the rifling. Isn't that crazy? I couldn't really see that prior to cleaning it up, you know, with the first cut, but once I inspected it, I'm like, oh my goodness, the rifling's still way down there. So here we go, and I think I'll just turn you off until I have something better to see, because this is probably going to take 15 or 20 minutes of turning the crank. Okay, so now I've exposed the end of the rifling, and I can see even naked eye nice little pattern, you know, of the shape of the two different diameters of the exposed rifling, you know, the way it makes it look. Under the loop it looks great. So now I've removed enough material that I am going to break the edge after all, because there's just a little bit of that factory broken edge left. So I'm going to recut that, but first I'm going to polish the end of this and make sure I'm really happy and done. And I'm going to use this tool that you know, one can turn one's own on the lathe, or you know, hold a piece of stock against a grindstone, or use a brass slotted head screw. That works fine. That's, you know, been done forever. Anyway, and I'm using the fine side of a valve lapping compound. So I do just a very small circular motion, and make sure it's done really good. Get a little piece of paper towel. Oh, this looks great. Let me see how it looks through the loop, though. My soon-to-be 60-year-old eyes are one thing, but the loop, we can zoom way in here. Oh yeah. Nice. Yep, looks really, really good. Okay, so I'm going to break the edge with this tool. See if that's in there deep enough. Oh yeah. And crank handle here. Like it. Nice. Okay. So now pick up and put away these tools. And then we'll put it on the bench, clean the bore, blue and oil, mount the muzzle brake, get the action mounted in its new stock, yay, and I'm going to have to cut the forearm bolt to fit, and then once that's done we'll be test firing it. So I'll check back in with you in a little bit. I'm really glad I did this. The gun's really going to benefit from having had this done. Okay, we'll check back in with you in a bit.